Good morning, my lovely students. How are you today? So, today our lesson is very interesting and too easy. Our unit is in the mountains, and our lesson is Dad's favorite walk. Please open your pupils' book, page 30 and 31. Let's start. Before we start, Ya Khamis, let's look at the pictures. We have Susan. You are going to read about Susan's adventure in the mountains. It is a personal recount. شو يعني يا خامس personal recount؟ يعني إعادة سرد. كيف يعني يا مس؟ يعني سوزان يا مس راحت مغامرة وهي حبت ترجع تسرد لنا شو صار معها أحداث. She writes about the people she went with. مع مين راحت سوزان؟ راحت with her twin brother اللي هو فريد and her mom and her dad. She writes about the things and the places she saw. So she saw waterfall, she saw cave, cliff, peak, and ravine and glacier. Okay. A personal recount uses the first person. شو يعني first person؟ يعني Susan is the writer and she uses I. شو حكت عنا لما سوزان كانت قاعدة بتحكي القصة؟ كانت تحكي I thought, I went, I saw. هذا بسميه first person يا مس لأني أنا عم بحكي عن نفسي. حتى she uses we when she tells us what she did with Fred, mom and dad. لما كانت تحكي على جميع شو البروناون اللي كانت تستخدمه we. هدول شو بسميهم first person. Okay. She tells us what happened in order. شو يعني يا مس؟ أخذنا إذا بتتذكروا يا خامس أخذنا بصف رابع لما بدنا نكتب موضوع writing كيف لازم يكون في عندي ترتيب للأحداث. كنا نحكي first بعدين كنا نحكي then next and finally the last paragraph, right? Okay, so she wrote first we followed a narrow path and second etc. A personal recount doesn't usually contain direct speech. In Susan's recount she tells us شو اللي خبرتنا فيه بسردها للقصة أو المغامرة اللي صارت معها. حكت لنا what happened with her, what she did and what she thought. Okay, now open your pupils book, page 30 and 31. Let's listen to the text.
Pupils book, page 30, unit 2. In the mountains. Reading.
Dad's favourite walk. My dad used to live in Switzerland and he worked as a mountain guide. This summer, Dad wanted to visit Switzerland again. In July, I travelled to the mountains with Mum, Dad and my twin brother, Fred. We stayed in a hotel in a little village and we had a great time. One day, Dad took us on his favourite walk. First, we followed a narrow path through a meadow. There were lots of flowers and there were goats with bells round their necks. They tinkled when the goats moved. After that, the path went through a forest. It was shady and quiet. It reminded me of Red Riding Hood, but I didn't see a wolf. After the forest, the path climbed steeply towards the mountain peaks. It led between huge rocks and then the walk became a real adventure. Dad had some surprises for us. We walked into a deep, narrow ravine. We could hear the river splashing over the rocks at the bottom. While we were walking, we heard a distant roar. Gradually, it got louder. We walked round a massive boulder, and there was the most amazing sight. Water was falling straight down the mountain and crashing onto the rocks below us. The sound was incredible. A waterfall really does roar. It sounded like an angry beast. We couldn't hear each other at all. Dad beckoned to us and we followed him. The path led behind the waterfall. It was amazing. On the left of the path was the mountainside and on the right was falling water. I thought it was fantastic, but it was a bit scary too. It was quite dark and very noisy. The path came out from behind the waterfall, but round the corner it stopped at the edge of a high cliff. There was a short wooden bridge with rope at the sides, and it was swinging in the breeze. It looked terrifying, but Dad knew it was safe. Anyway, it was the only way to cross the ravine. The bridge swung even more when we walked on it. We walked slowly to keep steady. Fred and I thought it was fun, but Dad had to help Mum. She's frightened of high places. She walked with her eyes shut. We sat on the rocks and ate our lunch. Then we set off again. We climbed higher and higher. After an hour, our legs were aching, but at last we came to the best place on the whole mountain. It was a huge glacier, and it looked like a frozen river of ice. There were lots of other people there too. There was a cave in the ice. There were rooms in the cave and ice furniture. Fred sat on the ice chair and played the ice piano. It was funny. The last surprise of all was a ride down to the hotel on the little mountain train. We were exhausted, but it was a brilliant walk.
Let's read the first paragraph. خلونا نشرحها مع بعض. اوكي نرجع مرة تانية. فهمنا شو معنى personal recount؟ يعني إعادة سرد للأحداث يا مس. فإحنا حكينا سوزان استخدمت first person narrator. شو يعني يا مس؟ استخدمت I pronoun I واستخدمت we عشان تحكي عن حالها and her family. So let's start. Dad's favorite walk. My dad used to live in Switzerland and he worked as a mountain guide. So what job did Susan's dad used to do? شو الوظيفة اللي كان يشتغلها أبو سوزان يا مس؟ He worked as a mountain guide. شو يعني mountain guide؟ Excellent. يعني دليل كان يعني دليل هو بيشتغل دليل سياحي للجبال. Okay. This summer, Dad wanted to visit Switzerland again. In July, I traveled to the mountains with Mom, Dad, and my twin brother Fred. We stayed in a hotel in a little village and we had a great time. So, in July, Susan and her family decided to travel to Switzerland to visit the mountains, right? So, Susan traveled with her mom, dad, and her twin brother Fred. شو يعني twin brother يا مس؟ اللي هو توأمها. What's his name? Fred. Very good. One day, Dad took us on his favorite walk. First, we followed a narrow path through a meadow. نكتب المعاني يا خامس على كتابنا. So first, we followed a narrow path through a meadow. There were lots of flowers and there were goats with bells round their necks. They tinkled when the goats moved. كان في يا مس goats كان في عنا ماعز وكان في there were bells round their necks كان في أجراس حول عنقهم. They tinkled when the goats moved. لما كانوا يتحركوا الماعز كان يرن الجرس. After that the path went through a forest. خلصنا الباث وحكينا الباث اللي هو الطريق أو المسار. After the path, okay, we reached the forest. It was shady and quiet. It reminded me of Red Riding Hood, but I didn't see a wolf. What did the forest reminded Susan of? بإيش ذكرت يا مس الغابة لسوزان؟ Red Riding Hood. نتذكرها يا خامس قصة ذات الرداء الأحمر اللي أخذناها برابع. Red Riding Hood. But she didn't see a wolf. After the forest, the path climbed steeply toward the mountain's peak. It led between huge rocks, and then the walk became a real adventure. Dad had some surprise for us. Okay, حكينا كانوا متجهين نحو بطريق ضيق أو مسار ضيق يامس وصاروا يطلعوا بشكل حاد بشكل تدريجي باتجاه قمة الجبل. Okay. Let's continue. Look at the picture. We have Susan, Fred, her mom, and her dad. We walked into a deep, narrow ravine. We could hear the river splashing over the rocks and at the bottom. While we were walking, we heard a distant roar. Gradually, it got louder. We walked round a massive boulder, and there was the most amazing sight. Water was falling straight down the mountain and crashing on the rock below us. Okay يا خامس, look at the picture. حكينا احنا انهم كانوا اخر اشي وصلوا لوادي ضيق. اوكي they heard the splashing over the rocks، كانوا يسمعوا طرطشة ماء اللي هن وصلوا للووترفول للشلال. اوكي now we have new vocabulary لازم نحفظهم يا خامس. English Arabic لازم نحفظهم. إنجليزي عربي. The first word is a twin. Two children born to the same mother and same time. Twin توأم. Narrow having a small distance from side to side. narrow يا مس معناها ضيق، يعني having a small distance اللي هي مسافة صغيرة بين سايدين، اللي هو حكينا طريق ضيق يعني. اوكي path a way made by or used by people. path طريق أو مسار. meadow a field of grass. meadow اللي هو المرج الأخضر أو الحقل الأخضر يا خامس. exhausted very tired. massive very big شيء هائل أو كبير جدا. also we have deep going a long way down. we have shady full of shadows اللي هو حكينا الفورست كانت shady forest اللي هي غابة غامضة أو فيها because في عنا أشجار كتير فكانت الغابة فيها ظل كتير. okay and we have peak top of the mountains اللي هي قمة الجبل. ravine a narrow deep valley with steep sides. ravine اللي هو الوادي وعر. and the last word boulder a very large rock اللي هي صخرة كبيرة. okay we have roar to make a loud sound. حكينا وهن ماشيين باتجاه البيك اللي هي قمة الجبل. اوكي كانوا يسمعوا roar اللي هو زي الزئير احنا بنحكي اللي هو هدير الماء. اوكي كان الصوت من كتر ما هو مرتفع كان زي زئير الأسد. اوكي incredible not believable اللي هي لا يصدق. و steeply at a sharp angle اللي هي بشكل حاد. This is the end. Thank you.